He slid an envelope across the kitchen table and said, "Here, $50,000. Get rid of it." Just like that. Like he was paying a parking ticket, not telling me to erase a human life. So let me ask you this. Right from the start, if someone offered you more money than you'd ever seen in your life, in exchange for your baby, what would you do? My name is Brooke, and this is the story of how I got pregnant by a billionaire's son, how he tried to buy our child out of existence, and how that same man ended up rocking our daughter to sleep in a tiny apartment hundreds of miles away from his mansion. That envelope, it made a sound when it hit the table, a soft thud, but it felt like a gunshot in my chest. I remember staring at it, at the thick paper, at his perfect handwriting on it, like if I just looked hard enough, it would turn into something else. Maybe a love letter, maybe an apology. But it wasn't. It was a check. My hand went straight to my stomach. I didn't even think about it. My body just moved. There was barely a bump yet. Just this quiet little secret under my palm. Across from me, Warren sat straight-backed in one of those high-end kitchen chairs that probably cost more than my whole wardrobe. His face was calm, controlled, like we were reviewing a contract. "Take it," he said. "Use it for the procedure. Do it somewhere discreet. I'll have someone help you schedule it if you need." His voice. It wasn't the voice I knew. Not the voice that had once whispered that he loved me 17 times. Not the voice that had laughed with me in a crappy diner 2 hours from the Hamptons. This voice was cold, like I was just another problem in his inbox. "Warren, please," I whispered. "We can talk about this. We can figure something out." "There's nothing to figure out," he cut in sharper now. "You work for my family. That is all. What happened between us was a mistake. One night that shouldn't have happened." That line hurt on so many levels, and for so many reasons. But here's the thing. Nobody tells you. It wasn't one night, and it wasn't a mistake. At least not for me. So let me take you back to where this really started. To a 12-bedroom mansion in the Hamptons, a boss who cared about the angle of her throw pillows, and a girl who thought she could stay invisible if she just kept her head down. I'd been working for the Ashford family for 2 years. Their place was ridiculous. The kind of estate that makes you feel poor just walking past the gate. Indoor pool tennis courts, manicured gardens that seemed to go on forever. Guest cottages nicer than any apartment I'd ever lived in. Rich people's silence is different. You know that. It's heavy, carpeted, like even the air is expensive. My job was simple, on paper clean polish, organize, repeat. Keep the floors shining, the glass sparkling, the silverware lined up in straight little rows. Stay out of the way. Speak when spoken to. Never make yourself the story. And then there was Mrs. Gwen Ashford, Warren's mother. Elegant, controlled always in some pastel outfit that probably cost more than a car. She was precise about everything. The towels in her bathroom had to be folded a certain way. Her tea had to be exactly the right temperature. Her roses had to be trimmed at just the right angle. The first week I worked there, she corrected the way I stacked the plates. Not because they were dirty, because the logos weren't facing the same direction. Yeah, that kind of household. I didn't argue. I couldn't afford to. My mom was back in Buffalo sick, and the bills were piling up faster than I could pay them. I had left nursing school to work full-time, promising myself I'd go back one day when things weren't so impossible. If I sent money home, Mom could keep her medications. That was the only math that mattered. So I made a rule for myself: be efficient, be polite, be invisible, and absolutely under no circumstances get involved with the billionaire's son. You already know how that part went. The first time I saw Warren in person, I was standing at the top of a ladder in the library, dusting shelves. I'm pretty sure nobody in that house had touched in 10 years. The room looked like a magazine spread. Huge window leather chairs, dark wood, a ladder on rails that rolled across the shelves. I liked the library. It was quiet, and the books didn't yell at you about how you folded towels. I stretched to reach the very top shelf. The ladder wobbled, and before I could react, it just slid. My stomach dropped. There was this split second where I knew I was going to fall, like my brain saw it happening before my body did. Hardwood floors were waiting for my skull, but instead of hitting the floor, I hit something solid and warm. Hands. Strong hands grabbed my waist and steadied me, holding me upright so gently it almost felt like a hug. "Easy there," a voice said low and steady. I opened my eyes and looked straight into warm brown ones I recognized from every expensive frame on the walls. Warren Ashford. In the photos, he always looked kind of stiff. Perfect suit, perfect hair, standing next to some older man in a boardroom or on a yacht. In person, he looked real. His dark hair was a little messy, like he'd been running his fingers through it. There was a faint scar above his right eyebrow, the kind of thing that would be photoshopped out of a magazine cover, and a hint of stubble on his jaw. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Ashford," I blurted, face burning. "I should have been more careful." He smiled, and it changed his whole face. Softer, younger, almost boyish. "It's fine," he said. "And it's Warren. Just Warren." He helped me step off the ladder, his hand staying on my waist a second longer than they really needed to. My heart did this stupid flutter thing I tried to ignore. "You're Brooke, right?" he said. "You've been working here. What, a couple of years?" I froze. Rich people usually don't learn the staff's names. I was used to being called the girl or the maid. Hearing my name in his voice caught me off guard. "Yes, sir," I said. Then I corrected myself. Yes, Warren. "I've seen you around," he said. "You're always moving. Don't you ever take a break?" "Breaks don't pay the bills," I answered before I could stop myself. It just slipped out my filter, gone for a second. He frowned like I'd poked him in some hidden sore spot, then brushed it away with another small smile. "Right," he said quietly. "Of course." He looked at me a little longer than was comfortable, studying my face in this focused way. "Well, my mother's gone for a charity thing. You could take an hour if you wanted. I won't tell." I shook my head. "Thank you. I'm fine." I should have gone right back to dusting. I should have pretended he was just another rich guy with good hair. But something about the way he looked at me, like I was more than just part of the furniture, stuck, and that's how it started. Not with some dramatic kiss in the rain, but with a near-fall warm hands, and a rich man who knew my name. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't help noticing a pattern. Wherever I was, there he was too. If I was in the kitchen wiping down the counters, he walked in looking for coffee. If I was polishing the banister, he just happened to be taking a call where it's quieter. If I was out in the garden clipping dead roses, he came strolling along the path like he just felt like taking a walk. Maybe it was coincidence at first. But when coincidence starts bringing you coffee, you kind of notice. He talked to me. Not just small talk either. Sure, we started with dumb stuff. Whether the house some painting he said he hated that his mother loved. But it escalated fast. He told me about growing up as an Ashford, about never really feeling like his life belonged to him, about how the company was this invisible weight he carried everywhere. "Sometimes I feel like my whole life is a script somebody else wrote," he said one gray afternoon in the conservatory, watching rain slide down the glass. "Go to this school, take this job, marry this type of woman. There's no room for me to actually choose anything real." I told him about my mom, about watching her go from working extra shifts to not being able to stand for long, about the way hospitals smell like bleach and fear, about sitting in a financial office while someone calmly explained how they'd send our bill to collections if we couldn't pay by Friday. He looked at me with something like respect, which if you've ever been poor in a rich space, you know is not something you get a lot of. "You're different," he said one evening. "Most people see my name first, my money, my last name. You just talk to me." "Well," I said, trying to make a joke, "I also see that you leave coffee cups everywhere." He laughed, really laughed, and it did something to my chest I didn't want to examine too closely. This is the part where I tell you there was one big thing in the way. There always is. Her name was Paige, his fiancée. I had seen her picture before I met him. Beautiful blonde, the kind of flawless rich girl. Beautiful that probably came with a stylist and a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor named Celine. Their engagement announcement had been in some business magazine. Two powerful families joined forces, like they were companies merging. I told myself that any weird feeling I got around Warren was just a human response to attention, not actual interest. I reminded myself every time his hand brushed mine that he was taken, that I worked for his family, that this was dangerous. And for a while I kept it together, until the night I didn't. It was raining hard, like the sky was trying to power wash the whole estate. Mrs. Ashford was at some fundraiser. Most of the staff had finished their tasks and disappeared into their quarters. I was in the conservatory again, wiping down glass and fixing cushions, pretending not to notice how the thunder made the whole house feel like a giant drum. "Brooke," he said from behind me, and even before I turned, I knew it was him. I turned anyway. He was in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, tie loose around his neck hair, just a little damp at the edges. He looked tired and vulnerable and like trouble. "We shouldn't be alone together," I said. "You know that." "I know," he said, stepping closer anyway. "I know all the reasons this is a bad idea. You work here, I'm engaged, my family would lose their minds." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the tiny scar above his eyebrow. "But I can't stop thinking about you." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "Warren," I said, "this is dangerous." He nodded. "I know, and if you tell me to walk away, I will," he said. "But when I'm with you, Brooke, I feel like I can breathe. With Paige, with my parents, I feel like a product. With you, I feel like a person. You know what I mean." I knew exactly what he meant. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair off my cheek, hand trembling just enough to give him away. "Tell me to go, and I will," he whispered. I could have. Maybe I should have. Instead, I froze. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop him. And when his lips touched mine, every part of my brain that had been screaming rules and consequences just went quiet. The kiss started soft, careful, but then something broke open. All the late-night conversations, all the stolen glances, all the "we shouldn't" and "we can't" turned into "we are." My hands went to his shirt, his went to my waist, and the next thing I knew, we were in the guest cottage by the pool, in a space that had always been empty, suddenly full of us. We spent the night together. I'm not going to give you every detail. This isn't that kind of channel. But I will tell you this: for the first time in a long time, I felt chosen. Not hired, not tolerated. Chosen. Afterward, curled up against his chest, I asked the question I was afraid to ask. "What happens now?" "I'm going to end things with Paige," he said into my hair. "I'll talk to my parents. We'll figure this out. I promise." "Are you sure?" I asked. "Your family, your company, all of this." "My family doesn't own my heart," he said. "You do." I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. So I did. For 2 months we lived in this secret bubble. At the mansion, I was the maid again. Neutral face hair, pulled back, eyes down. In the guest cottage in small towns a couple hours away, and late-night phone calls, when his parents thought he was working. I was his. We went to diners where nobody knew the Ashford name, and shared pancakes that tasted like freedom. We drove with the windows down, talking about everything and nothing. He told me he loved me, not once or twice, 17 times. Yeah, I counted. Each one felt like a little jewel I kept hidden in my chest. One Sunday morning at a diner that smelled like burnt coffee and syrup, he reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "I'm serious about this, Brooke. About you. I'm going to talk to my father this week. I'm going to call off the engagement." "What if he says no?" I asked. "Then I walk away from all of it," he said. "The company, the money, everything. As long as I have you, I'll figure the rest out." If it were you, would you have believed that? I did. Of course I did. That was the high point. And like most highs in life, the crash that came after was brutal. He went to Los Angeles for a week on business. While he was gone, we texted constantly. He sent me pictures of hotel rooftops. I sent him pictures of the guest cottage with dumb captions like, "Your real office." His last text before his flight home said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I have something important to tell you." I spent the whole day buzzing with nerves. Maybe he'd told his parents. Maybe he was free. Maybe we'd finally stop sneaking around. When he walked back into the mansion that evening, he walked right past me. No smile, no glance, nothing. I was standing in the hallway with a stack of fresh towels and he just walked by, like I was air. The first time I thought, okay, maybe someone's nearby. Maybe he has to act like he doesn't know me. By the third time, when he did the same thing, that hopeful little bubble inside me popped. Late that night when the house was quiet, I went up to his room and knocked. My heart was beating so hard, I thought it might break through my ribs. "Come in," he said. He was standing by the window, staring out into the dark. He didn't turn when I closed the door. "What's going on?" I asked. "You've been avoiding me all evening." "We need to talk," he said. His voice was flat. Those 4 words. They never lead to good things, do they? "Okay," I said, my mouth suddenly dry. He turned then. His face looked carved from stone. Whatever this is between us, it has to stop," he said. My throat closed. "What happened?" "My father found out," he said. "One of the staff saw us together and told him. He knows Brooke, and he is furious." "So we talked to him," I said. There is nothing to explain," Warren said, cutting me off. "It was a mistake. It was never going to work. We are from different worlds." "You didn't care about that before," I whispered. "You said you loved me. You said you'd fight for us." "I was naive," he said. "Look at the reality. I am engaged. The wedding is in 4 months. There are business deals tied to this marriage. If I back out now, it could cost my family millions. People could lose their jobs. This is bigger than you and me." There it was, the line rich people love to use. Bigger than us. "So it was about money," I said, feeling like I might throw up. "It's about responsibility," he snapped. "Something you clearly don't understand." That one hit a nerve. "I've been working since I was 16 to keep my family fed," I shot back. "Don't you dare talk to me about responsibility." "Just go, Brooke," he said, rubbing his forehead. "Please, this is hard enough." "Hard for you," I said, laughing in this ugly, broken way. "You're breaking my heart, and it's hard for you." "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "But you did," I replied. "You made me believe in a future. You made me love you. You promised me forever." He finally looked at me then. His eyes were red, but there were no tears. "I'm sorry," he said, "but this is how it has to be. My family comes first. It always has. What we had was nice, but it wasn't real. Not real. You ever have someone reduce your entire love story to a footnote in their life? It's a special kind of pain. "You're the maid, Brooke," he added, and his voice turned cruel. "What did you think was going to happen? That I'd throw away my entire life for you?" Something inside me shattered. "You're a coward, Warren," I said. "A coward and a liar." "Maybe," he said. But at least I'm being honest now. Yeah. That happened. I left the room in a daze. Walked back to my tiny staff quarters and cried until I couldn't see straight. Then I got up the next morning and went back to work because heartbreak doesn't get you out of scrubbing floors. 2 weeks later, my period was late. Then it was very late. I took one pregnancy test on my break in the staff bathroom. Positive. I took another. Positive. A third. Still positive. I sat on the closed toilet seat holding that plastic stick, hands shaking. I remember looking at myself in the mirror, at the uniform, the tired eyes, the red nose from crying, and thinking, this cannot be happening. But it was. I had a choice to make. Tell him or disappear. I chose to tell him, because as much as I hated him in that moment, he deserved to know. And honestly, part of me hoped that maybe this news would wake up the version of him I thought I knew. I went to his study that evening. He was behind his big mahogany desk, typing on a laptop, frowning. "What is it, Brooke?" he asked, not looking up. "I need to talk to you," I said. "It's important." He sighed, closed the laptop like I was an annoying pop-up ad. "Make it quick. I have a conference call in 10 minutes. My heart felt like it was going to punch its way out of my chest. "I'm pregnant," I said. Silence. He stared at me, then slowly sat back in his chair. I watched the emotions move across his face. Shock, calculation, then coldness. "Are you sure?" he asked. I took the tests out of my pocket and set them on his desk. 3 times, I said. About 6 weeks along, from that night in the guest cottage. He stood up and walked to the window, shoulders stiff. "This is a problem," he said finally. "A serious problem." "It's not a problem," I said, tears already burning my eyes. "It's a baby. Our baby." "No," he said sharply, turning to face me. "It's a complication, and it needs to be dealt with quickly and quietly." I felt like I'd stepped out of my body and was watching from somewhere else. "Dealt with how?" I asked. He didn't answer with words at first. He sat back down, pulled out his checkbook, and started writing. The sound of his pen scratching across the paper felt louder than my heartbeat. He finished, tore the check out, and held it toward me. $50,000, he said calmly. "Go to a clinic in the city, somewhere discreet. I'll help you find a place if you need. Get it taken care of." I looked at the check. The number swam in front of my eyes. 50,000. Do you know what that kind of money looks like when you're counting quarters to buy gas? "You want me to get an abortion?" I said. "It's not a baby yet," he replied, voice steady. "It's a cluster of cells. A few weeks. This is the best solution." "For who?" I asked. "For you or for me? For both of us," he insisted. "Think about it. You are a 24-year-old maid with a sick mother and no savings. How are you going to raise a child? You can barely survive as it is. Take the money, pay your mother's bills, maybe go back to school one day. This way your life isn't over, and mine doesn't explode. It's practical." It was practical, and it was disgusting. I thought about my mom counting pills. I thought about collection calls. I thought about how long I'd been trying just to break even. And then I thought about the tiny life inside me, the one who hadn't asked to be here, the one I'd already unconsciously started touching my stomach to protect. You know that moment where you realize who someone really is, and at the same time you realize who you are. That was mine. "No," I said, my voice coming out small but clear. He blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated louder this time. I pushed the check back toward him so hard it slid across the desk. "I'm not doing it. I'm keeping this baby." His face hardened. "Don't be foolish, Brooke. You can't possibly think this is a good idea." "I don't know if it's a good idea," I said. "I just know it's my decision. My body, my child. I'm keeping it." "Then you're on your own," he said, each word like ice. "I'll deny everything. It'll be your word against mine. A disgruntled employee trying to trap a billionaire's son. No one will believe you." "I don't care if they believe me. I said, tears streaming now. I know the truth. And so do you. If you go through with this, you are fired, he said. Effective immediately. And I will make sure you never work in the Hamptons again. I have connections everywhere. Then I'll work somewhere else, I said. Anywhere else, as long as it's far away from you. You are making a huge mistake, he said. The only mistake I made, I said, wiping my face, was loving you. I walked out of that mansion, that life, with nothing but a duffel bag and a baby I refused to trade for a check. An hour later, while I was packing, Mrs. Ashford came to my door. She looked different, tired, less perfect around the edges. Warren told me what's happening, she said. Then you know I'm leaving, I replied, folding clothes that suddenly felt too thin for the world I was walking into. Yes, she said, stepping inside. She placed an envelope on my bed. 2-month severance and a reference letter. It says you left for personal reasons. Thank you, I said quietly. Brooke, look at me, she said. I did. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, she said. You have already made your choice. But if you truly keep this baby, do it from a place of love, not revenge. A child deserves more than being born into someone else's anger. I'll manage, I said. I believe you will, she replied. For what it's worth, I think you are brave. Reckless, but brave. After she left, I cried one last time for the life I thought I was going to have. Then I got in a cab and went home, back to Buffalo, back to my mother, back to a tiny apartment that smelled like tea and old carpet. I didn't tell her the whole truth. I told her I had been seeing a man who turned out to be married, that I got pregnant, and he walked away. It was simpler and honestly less painful than saying I fell in love with my billionaire boss and he tried to pay me to make his child disappear. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into her frail arms. These things happen. We'll get through this. We'll get through it together. Finding work while visibly pregnant is like walking into a job interview wearing a sign that says, temporary liability. People were polite. Smiles, nods, lots of, we'll let you know. Most of them never did. Eventually, a little diner near our place hired me. I carried plates and refilled coffee and pretended my feet didn't hurt, saving every dollar I could for when the baby came. My pregnancy itself was pretty normal. Morning sickness early on, constant exhaustion, cravings for things I couldn't afford. I worked double shifts sometimes, feeling her kick, while I balanced 3 plates in one hand. Every night I'd come home, collapse onto our old couch, and talk to my belly. I don't know how I'm going to do this, I'd whisper, but I promise you I will. At my 20-week ultrasound, the tech asked if I wanted to know the gender. Yes, I said, clutching the sides of the bed. It's a girl, she said with a smile. She looks healthy, strong heartbeat. A girl, I cried, ugly cried, staring at the blurry image of her tiny profile on the screen. In that moment, she stopped being abstract. She was real. She was mine. I named her in my head right then. Autumn Rose. Autumn for change. Rose for my mom. Walker for the only name I trusted. No Ashford. Not anymore. She was born on a cold February morning after 14 hours of labor that made me curse every romantic choice I had ever made. The second they placed her in my arms, Red Squinty screaming her head off, everything else fell away. Hi, baby girl, I whispered, kissing her forehead. I'm your mom, and I'm never going to trade you for anything. She had my dark hair, my pale skin, and his eyes. Those warm brown eyes that had once made me feel chosen. Now they stared back at me from a tiny face, innocent and new. Being a single mom was harder than any job I'd ever had. The sleepless nights, the constant low-level fear humming in the background about money, health, everything. The way your whole world shrinks down to bottles, diapers, naps, and bills. People on TV talk about motherhood like it's all magic and soft lighting. Let me tell you, sometimes, it's just you at 3 a.m., crying on the floor with a screaming baby, both of you wearing shirts with spit up on them. But I never regretted keeping her. Not once. Months passed. Warren never called, never showed up, never sent so much as a text asking if I was okay, if she was okay. Part of me had expected that, honestly. Another part, well, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispering, he'll show up. He'll do the right thing. He didn't. Autumn was 8 months old when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me pick up. "Hello, Brooke," a familiar voice said. "This is Gwen Ashford." My spine went stiff. "How did you get this number?" I asked. She paused. "I have my ways," she said. "I need to ask you something, and I would appreciate an honest answer. Did you have the baby?" I looked across the room at Autumn sitting in her bouncer, happily chewing on a plastic giraffe. Every protective instinct in me screamed, say no, lie, hang up. But I was tired of hiding, tired of being ashamed of the best decision I had ever made. "Yes," I said. "I have a daughter. Her name is Autumn. She's 8 months old. She's healthy and perfect. And we're doing just fine without your son's money." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear faint kitchen sounds, maybe dishes or something. "Warren doesn't know, does he?" she finally asked. "He made it very clear he didn't want to know," I said. "Brooke," she said, and her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "I am not calling to defend what my son did. I know he hurt you deeply. But this child, she is still his daughter. She deserves the chance to know her father. She deserves a father who wants her," I corrected, "not someone who tried to pay for her to never exist." "You're right," Gwen said. That surprised me. "You are absolutely right. He made a terrible decision, the worst of his life. But people can make terrible mistakes and still try to make them right. Things have changed since you left." My heart kicked. "What do you mean?" "The wedding was called off 3 months ago," she said. "Paige found out about the affair. She ended it. The business alliances survived. Warren did not, at least not emotionally. He has been lost ever since." I'd love to tell you my first reaction was empathy. It wasn't. It was this sharp little sting of satisfaction. So he got to feel what it's like to be rejected too. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know," she said. "And because if Warren knew he had a daughter, I believe he would want to meet her." She took a breath. "I am not asking you to take him back. I am not asking you to forgive him. I am asking if you would consider allowing him to meet his child." I looked at Autumn, who was trying to stuff the giraffe's leg into her mouth, completely oblivious to the conversation that might change her life. "If he wants to meet her," I said slowly, "he can come to Buffalo. Alone. No lawyers, no checks, no conditions. He comes as a man, not as an Ashford." "I'll tell him," Gwen said. "Thank you, Brooke. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind, especially if you think rich men never actually change." 3 days later, someone knocked on my door. My heart was pounding before I even got there. When I opened it, there he was. Warren. Not the polished version from the magazines. He looked worn, thinner, dark circles under his eyes. His expensive suit was rumpled like he'd slept in it. His hair was messy in a way that had nothing to do with styling. "Brooke," he said, my name breaking a little in his throat. "Thank you for seeing me." I stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance. "Why are you here?" "To apologize," he said. "To beg for another chance to do at least one thing right. To meet my daughter, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking." "Why now?" I asked. "Because your wedding blew up. Because your perfect life fell apart." He winced like I'd slapped him. "Because I have been a coward," he said softly. "Because I let fear rule everything. Because every day since you left, I have regretted what I did. And because I recently found out I have a child, and the idea that she has been alive for 8 months without me even knowing her name is killing me. Words are cheap, Warren, I said. You should know that. You tried to buy my silence once. I know, he said quickly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something folded. A check. The check. I kept this, he said, looking ashamed, as a reminder of what I did. He unfolded it. $50,000 my name, his signature, then tore it in half, then in quarters. The pieces fluttered to the floor of my hallway like white confetti. I'm not here with money, he said. I am not here with deals. I am here with empty hands. I want to be a father. If you let me. If she lets me. Just then, Autumn started crying from the other room. That loud, outraged baby wail that says, I dropped my toy, and now the world is ending. His head snapped toward the sound. His eyes went wide like he had just heard a ghost. Is that her? He whispered. That's her, I said. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe compassion. Maybe that tiny piece of me that still believed in the boy in the conservatory, not the man with the checkbook. You get 5 minutes, I said, stepping aside. That's all. He walked into my little apartment like it was holy ground. There was nothing fancy in there. Old couch-chipped coffee table peeling paint. Autumn was in her playpen, face scrunched up, reaching for her fallen giraffe. When he saw her, he just stopped. He froze like someone had hit pause. He started. Then his voice broke. She has your eyes, I said, going to pick her up. Autumn clung to me, lower lip trembling, still upset about the giraffe situation. Autumn, I murmured, rocking her a bit. There's someone here who wants to meet you. Warren came closer slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal that might bolt. His face was a mix of awe and guilt and heartbreak. Hi, he said. Voice very soft. Hi, Autumn. I'm Warren. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. I am so sorry. She stared at him, studying him in that intense baby way, like she was trying to figure out what category to put him in. Then she did something that made my breath catch. She reached one chubby little hand out toward him. He looked at me silently, asking. I nodded. He held out his arms, and I passed her to him. He held her like she was made of glass, like he was afraid one wrong move would shatter her. Tears started falling down his cheeks, and he didn't even try to hide them. She's perfect, he whispered. She's absolutely perfect. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you for keeping her, for raising her, for being strong when I was weak. She isn't a gift I'm giving you, I said quietly. She's a person. If you want to be in her life, you're going to have to earn that, fully, no half measures. Oh, I know, he said immediately, and I will, whatever it takes. Tell me what I need to do. Start with the truth, I said. All of it. Why you chose them. Why you chose the check. Why you walked away. He nodded, still rocking Autumn gently. For the next 2 hours he talked. He told me about the conversation with his father. The threats from Paige's father. The reminders about how many families depended on Ashford jobs. How everyone made it sound like our relationship was a selfish whim that could destroy lives. I told myself I was being responsible, he said. That I was protecting the company, protecting jobs. But really I was protecting myself. Protecting my comfort, my image, my place. It was the easy way out. And the most cowardly. You should have fought for us, I said. I know, he replied. Every day I know. And then when you told me about the baby, I panicked. I saw everything collapsing. I grabbed the only tool I knew. Money. That check. It is the ugliest thing I've ever written. He looked down at Autumn, who had fallen asleep against his chest. Her little fist twisted in his shirt. I can never undo what I did, he said. But if you let me, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man both of you deserved from the beginning. I watched him for a long moment. He looked older. Not physically necessarily, but in his eyes. Less like the careless heir who thought he could fix everything with a signature, more like someone who had looked his own ugliness in the face and decided to do something about it. "This isn't about me and you," I said finally. "This is about her. She deserves a father who keeps showing up even when it's hard. No running when it gets uncomfortable. No hiding behind business deals. If you want to be in her life, you start at the bottom. No special treatment. You do the work." "I will," he said. "I'll move here. I'll get whatever job I can. I'll be here every day for as long as it takes." That was the twist. Not that he showed up. I half expected that after Gwen's call. The twist was that for once in his life, he didn't run back to the safety of his money. He ran toward the hard thing. And then he stayed. Warren rented a small apartment in Buffalo. No ocean views, no gated driveway. Just a normal place on a normal street. He talked to his family and arranged to work remotely, helping open a small Ashford office in the city. Not as the golden heir this time, but as one part of a team. Less money, less status, more time with us. He started coming over almost every day. At first, he was clearly out of his depth. He didn't know how to change a diaper. He was terrified of clipping her nails. The first time she spit up on him, he looked like someone had shot him. But he learned. He learned how to rock her when she had colic, how to make bottles half asleep, how to bounce her just right to calm her down. He read baby books. He asked other dads for advice. He got it wrong sometimes, a lot of times actually. But he kept trying. He showed up, over and over. Autumn didn't trust him immediately. Why would she? For months, it had just been me and her and my mom. When he tried to hold her in those early days, she'd twist toward me, arms out crying. He never forced it. He'd sit on the floor nearby and play with her toys instead, letting her come to him in her own time. Slowly, something shifted. She started looking for him when he walked in, reaching for him sometimes, laughing at his dumb faces. One day, when she was about a year old, she fell and scraped her knee. I went to pick her up, but she turned and ran straight to him instead, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her and looked at me over her head, eyes wet. That was one of those tiny moments where I thought, okay, maybe this is real. Meanwhile, I was watching him, closely, waiting for him to slip, to disappear, to show me that this was just another performance. But he didn't. When his father pressured him to come back to New York full-time, he said no. When he was offered a bigger role that would have meant constant travel, he turned it down. He started making different choices at work, too. He told me about a time they were debating moving part of a division overseas to save money. "Old me would have jumped at that," he said. "Better margins, shareholders happy. But I've watched you fight to pay rent, Brooke. I've watched your mom choose between medicine and groceries. I can't look at numbers and not see faces anymore." "And what did you do?" I asked. "We kept it here," he said. "Less profit, more jobs protected." I smiled. "Look at you," I said, "developing a conscience." "Yeah, well," he said, glancing at Autumn asleep on my lap. "I'm being trained by the best." About 6 months after he moved to Buffalo, there was this night I still think about. He was giving Autumn a bath in my tiny bathroom. She was splashing like crazy, soaking his shirt. He didn't care. He was laughing with her, making little bubble beards on her chin. I leaned against the doorway, watching them, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. "She's got your smile," I said. He looked up, and for a second the noise, the water, the clutter all faded. It was just his eyes on mine. "I love you, Brooke," he said quietly. "I never stopped. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know love is not enough when you've done what I've done. But I'm here. And I'm going to keep showing up for as long as it takes to be the man you and Autumn deserve. If it takes a year, 10 years, forever, I'm not going anywhere." I walked in, took the washcloth from his hand, and rinsed Autumn's hair. "You're not there yet," I said. "Not with me, not fully. But you're getting closer." It took another year. Another year of daycare pickups, doctor visits, late-night fevers, and tiny birthdays with homemade cupcakes. Another year of him choosing us over fancy offers. Another year of him catching himself when he tried to fix things with money instead of time, and changing course. One evening, after we had put Autumn to bed, we sat on my couch. He told me about a new policy he'd pushed for at work: better parental leave, more flexible hours for parents. "You would have loved seeing the board's faces," he said. "But I wouldn't let it go. I kept thinking of you working pregnant, hustling for tips, while your back was killing you." "Maybe success with a soul is allowed," I said. "That's the plan," he replied with a shy smile. I took a breath. My heart was hammering, but not in the terrified way it used to. More in the, this might actually be okay way. "I need to tell you something," I said. He turned fully toward me, eyes already worried. "What is it?" "I love you," I said. The words tumbled out fast. "I'm still scared. I'm still healing. But I love you. I don't think I ever really stopped." His eyes filled instantly. "Brooke!" "I'm not done," I said, holding up a hand. "If we do this, if we try again as a couple, it has to be different. No secrets, no running, no putting money or reputation or business deals ahead of us. We don't break up because your father frowns. We don't trade promises for checks. We stand together, or we don't stand at all." "Together," he said without hesitation. "Always together, I swear." We didn't rush into moving in together. We dated properly this time. Babysitters' dinners, walks in the park. He had his apartment. I had mine. We were building something with foundations, not fantasy. Then, one afternoon, when Autumn was playing on the living room floor with her blocks, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. He didn't drop to one knee. He didn't make a speech. He just opened the box and looked straight at me. "Marry me," he said. "Not because it's expected, not because it looks good in a magazine, because I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you and to our daughter that I can be the man you both deserve." The ring was simple, beautiful, but not flashy. It felt like the opposite of that check in the kitchen. That had been a symbol of escape. This was a symbol of commitment. I looked at the ring, at Autumn, at him. I thought about the girl on the ladder, the maid in the mansion, the pregnant woman staring at a check. And I thought about the woman I'd become, the one who had chosen her child, chosen herself, and forced a powerful man to confront who he really was. "Yes," I said, crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, Warren." We had a small wedding in Buffalo. Just close family. No magazine photographers, no 500-person guest list. Gwen came. Before the ceremony, she took my hands in hers. "I was wrong about you," she said. "I judged you by your job, not your character. You did something I didn't think anyone would do. You walked away from money, from comfort, to bring that little girl into the world. You've raised her beautifully. My son is lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have him too," I said. "The man he is now." "People can change," she said, glancing at Autumn, who was twirling in a dress that was way too poofy for the occasion. "Sometimes it just takes the right reason." 5 years after he slid that envelope across the kitchen table and told me to get rid of it, I stood in the backyard of the house we owned together in Buffalo. Not a mansion, just a regular house with peeling paint in a few spots, and a backyard big enough for a swing set. Autumn was 5, chasing bubbles and shrieking with laughter. Her little brother, yeah, we went back for round 2, was toddling behind her, falling every few steps, then popping back up. Warren came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Happy?" he asked, resting his chin on my shoulder. I watched our kids run through the sunshine, soap bubbles floating around them like tiny worlds. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." "Thank you," he whispered. For keeping her. For not taking the money. For giving me another chance. For everything. I turned in his arms and looked him straight in the eye. Thank you, I said, for becoming the kind of man worth getting a second chance. That's my story. But here's where I turn it back to you. Do you think a man who tried to pay someone to end a pregnancy deserves another chance at fatherhood, at love, if he truly changes? Do you believe people like that can actually change? Or do you think once someone shows you what they're capable of, when they're scared, you should never ever trust them again? If it were you, standing in that kitchen with that check in your hand and a baby in your belly, what would you have done? Would you have taken the money and walked away? Would you have kept the baby and never let him back in? Or would you have done what I did and made him prove over years that he was not that same person anymore? Do you think what happened was fair to me, to Autumn, to him? I don't think there's one right answer. I only know that my choice gave me a daughter who lights up my world and a life I built on my own terms. The messy parts, the painful parts, they forged me into someone stronger than I ever thought I could best. So if you're still here, I really want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, do you believe in second chances like this? Or do you think I was wrong to let him back in? Have you ever been pressured to make a choice about your body, your baby, your future, because someone else was scared or selfish? Share your thoughts, your anger, your hope, your own stories. Do not hold back. I read what you write. If this story made you feel anything at all, if it made you cry or clench your jaw, or just stop and think about what you'd do, share this video with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because out there, beyond the fancy gates and perfect pictures, there are a lot of real stories like mine. And some of them will make you question what you really believe about love, money, power, and what a life is worth.